to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
Yes, you are.
Indeed.
Yaha. This week, Evan, it's just me and you again, as Dave is on his last week of vacation. Woohoo! Yeah. We're excited for him for enjoying the vacation, but we're also very excited to have him back. We miss him very much. Dave, we miss you. Can't wait to see you and talk to you. This week, we have two movies we're going to be covering. But before we get into what those two movies are, we want to tell you about our Patreon. Go check it out. If you're a patron for $5 a month, you get to listen to weekly bonus episodes. This week, we talk about the 1979 sci-fi film Time After Time, starring Malcolm McDowell, David Warner, and Mary Steenburgen. And we have a great conversation about that. So go check it out. And if you're not a member, consider joining.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Good conversation.
It sure was. Another thing we want to tell you about is we want to give a huge thank you to the documentary filmmaker, the director of The Automat, which we reviewed on the show a while ago, Lisa Hurwitz. Thank you so much, Lisa Hurwitz. We really appreciate that you not only listened to the show, but you commented and you had very kind words to say. So thank you so much. We love getting feedback from you listeners. We love hearing from filmmakers. It's really exciting. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. It was really nice to get that message. And I'm always like in awe when directors actually listen to our show.
I know. It's kind of weird and kind of cool.
Yeah, and I always hope it's when we have nice things to say because I don't like to make anybody feel bad. So it was really nice. It was like, oh, good. We had good things to say about that one.
Yeah, that is really a tricky thing to balance because you always want to give your honest feedback and opinions, of course. But I know, but there's so much hard work and time and dedication that goes into making a film. You never want to make anyone feel bad. So you're totally right, Evan. And we also want to tell you, because we often talk about this at the end of the show, we have merch, people. So if you want to represent what we hope, I was going to say your favorite podcast. We hope we're one of your favorite podcasts. You want to represent spoilering movies everywhere and Spoiler Piece Theater, go to our website, spoilerpiece.com, and that will take you to our TeePublic store that takes you to all of our fabulous merch. Now, let's get to the movies. We have two movies we're going to be talking about this week. We are going to be talking about Prey, the sci-fi action film, and we're going to be talking about the psychological thriller Resurrection. And that's what we're going to be talking about first. Resurrection stars Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth. It premiered at Sundance, which is where I first saw it. It is written and directed by Andrew Simmons or Siemens. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I hope one of those ways was correct. Okay, and here is the press notes synopsis of the film. Margaret's life is in order. She is capable, disciplined, and successful. Soon, her teenage daughter, whom Margaret raised by herself, will be going off to a fine university, just as Margaret had hoped. Everything is under control. Ooh, that's always when you know things are going to go awry.
Yep.
That is, until David returns, carrying with him the horrors of Margaret's past. And Margaret is Rebecca Hall, and David is Tim Roth.
Yep.
And that's a very short and sweet summary, but that is definitely setting the stage because we see Margaret. She is successful in her business. She's in a meeting and everybody loves her presentation. She has a very commanding way about her. She gives advice to an intern about her love life. She's very protective of her teen daughter, but they seem to have a really great rapport. She's very disciplined in her exercise regimen, running quite often. She is having a romance with a married man whom she's friends with, and they have a regular relationship that's cordial, but pretty much sexual, which, hey, good for her. But yeah, she's got everything in alignment the way she wants it. And then things start going weird when her daughter does a prank and pulls out a tooth and she thinks that's her daughter's tooth. And her daughter's like, no, I just found it in my wallet. Like, wait, what? First of all, I have so many questions. Why is there a tooth in your wallet? Why did you take it out and you're not horrified? And thirdly, why are you putting it in your mouth as a prank? Like, and that's just the start of the questions. But she does that, and Margaret is very unsettled, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. And then she's at a work conference, and she sees a man, and she just crumbles. Her very stoic and strong exterior just evaporates, and she runs, literally runs out of the room. Yeah.
Like knocking over other chairs, you're just knocking into tables, and just breaks out into a sprint.
Yeah, full on all the way till she gets back home to make sure her daughter's okay. And then later in a department store, she sees him again, and it's Tim Roth as David. And we learn who David is. David is her much older ex. When she was a teenager, he was much older than her, because he's still much older than her. And he was her boyfriend, and she got pregnant, and they had a baby. And then when she got home one day, 2 of the baby's fingers were severed and on a table. And he's told her that he swallowed the baby, and that the baby was living inside his belly. And she left. She took off and went to the US, hoping to never see him again. But she carried all of this guilt about how she was a terrible mother because she let him abuse her and let him murder their baby, which is a tremendous amount of guilt to be shouldering yourself. But yeah, and then she goes on essentially a mission to make sure that she and her daughter are going to be safe and to get him out of her life. And yeah, what did you think?
I really liked this movie.
Good.
Up until the end.
Curses.
Rebecca Hall is just so good in this, as she always is.
Always.
She just paints such a compelling portrait of someone who has it all on lockdown until she sees Tim Roth again at this conference, and just everything falls apart for her. And it's so much guilt to be working with. It's so high stress, high anxiety, and it's just absolutely devastating to just watch her crumble and just continue becoming more like affected by the stress and the trauma until she's just like, you know, walking around at night trying to stalk him with plans to like shoot him in the head, and like just becoming increasingly more stressed out and erratic at work, to like her coworkers are worried about her.
Her daughter's worried about her.
Her daughter is very worried about her because she's behaving erratically, and she's becoming more and more and more controlling of her and her behavior, and like insisting that she texts her every hour, every minute or so. It becomes absurd. It's so sad and so frustrating to see that all kind of go down. And yeah, I found it utterly compelling, and I was so like glued to the screen. And then I felt like the ending for me was just like a weird left turn into some other movie that I was like, wait a minute, what's this? What? I thought I was watching a different movie.
Oh, well, we should talk about that, because I have a very different take, and I love that ending. And I think that ending is completely in alignment with the film. So yeah, let's talk about that ending. So in the end, her daughter is gone, because her daughter's like, I got to get out of here. I can't handle what you're doing, and you're too controlling, and things are ridiculous. And Tim Roth is basically telling her, like, he's like, you have to, he's already said this earlier in the film. He's like, you have to do a kindness, as he calls it, to like make amends for a mistake. And he's having her like walk to work barefoot, or but like squat in the park with like her hands behind her back for like hours and hours. It's absurd. So he tells her, you need to show up here at this hotel room tomorrow night. And she does. And he's like, do you want to talk to the baby? And she puts her head against his belly, and she swears she can hear the baby making noise. And then they tussle essentially, and she tries to kill him. She's like trying to stab him, and he's angry, and because she's trying to stab him, and he's like, "We can be a family. What are you doing?" And then he stabs her in the shoulder. And then this is so great. As she's crawling towards him and he's like, "I'll save you. I'll save you." She slices his Achilles tendon and then gets a phone cord and strangles him. And he's like, "If you kill me, you kill the baby." But she's like, "Well, then I got to do this while you're alive." And she cuts open his belly to take the baby out.
With a steak knife, by the way.
Yes, with a steak knife. And as he's dying, she sees the baby and the baby is breathing, and she takes the baby out and she's holding the baby, rocking the baby. And then it cuts to she's in bed holding the baby, and her teen daughter is there holding the baby. And Margaret is there and looks so happy, so blissful, until she doesn't. And then she gasps and the film cuts. And that's the end. So you think it's a different film. I don't think it's a different film. And so here's what I think is happening, because it goes to a very surreal place. And the director said in the interview that he gave in the press notes that it's completely open to interpretation. There is no right answer, no wrong answer. He wanted it to be ambiguous intentionally, and that's very clear. But I also think it's kind of obvious what's happening. Like, to me, I think it's obvious what's happening. So much earlier in the film, very early on, she goes to the stove and opens the oven, and she sees a charred baby inside, and then she wakes up. It's a nightmare, but it feels very real as it's happening. I think this is a complete nightmare, or dream, depending on how you're looking at it. But I think it's a dream, not real. I think she's dead, and I think that this is her mind trying to assuage herself as she's dying, because after this happens, it's all like very bright. It's like the look of the film, the lighting of the film is completely different than every other scene we've ever seen in this film. So so I'm okay with it. But
I also believe that she is dead, and this is all happening in her mind at the end. I just think, aside from that dream, which I can think of as a dream, like there are dreams in movies. Okay. I feel like the movie had established a very grounded reality in which it was taking place. And although Tim Roth's character was clearly out of his mind, like with this whole, like, I ate the baby's inside me, I had no reason to believe that the movie was then going to be like, it's a metaphor. Like, I thought it was like, he's out of his mind. He's a horrible, horrible person and a murderer. But I wasn't expecting the movie to go into this like surreal, like the baby as like I was not expecting it, and I didn't feel like it fit to me with the rest of the tone of the movie and the rules that it was kind of like playing by. So that was, to me, it was like, I get what it's doing, I just don't think it's effective.
Yeah, no, and I totally hear you, and I completely disagree. I think it is utterly effective. I think it's in alignment with everything else that's happening in the film. It is grounded, and I think the grounding is Rebecca Hall's performance, and I think the very real fears she has as a woman who was emotionally and physically, because we see the marks on her back.
Oh my God,
she was emotionally abused. She was physically abused. She was groomed as a child. She was dealing with this manipulative abuser, and it's extremely hard to get away from an abuser. And so I think that's the grounding, the reality there. And I think her shame, and she should not feel any shame. She did nothing wrong.
No.
But her shame and guilt are so all-encompassing that I think this is how she can handle it, and this is how she can deal with it or cope with it. And I think there's a real tragedy there, obviously. But there are enough surreal elements happening in the film that for me, it didn't feel out of left field. Like, I can see why it didn't work for you. But for me, if there had been no surreal elements, like no talk about baby swallowing and no baby in an oven, then I might be like, what the hell? But because there are those few elements there, and Yeah, I was okay with it. I bought into it and I was all right. What I had more of a problem with is this notion that as a mother, you have to sacrifice everything for your child. That is what kind of bothered me and didn't really sit well with me. But having said that, I also kind of understand where she as a character is coming from, because she, you know, is like, well, I couldn't protect myself. The least I can do is protect my children. But she didn't feel like she could protect her children. So it's just kind of awful, but not even kind of awful. It is completely awful. Yeah. It's so sad. Yeah. So that's kind of my bigger problem with the film. But at the same time, to me, the writing is so sharp and Rebecca Hall's performance is so powerful. She is always bringing every ounce of herself to a role. She never gives a half-assed performance. She is always giving absolutely 100%. And she always gives very complex performances, very thoughtful performances. She uses her physicality really well in every performance. Every single performance I've ever seen her in, she's incredible. And I think she's utterly astounding here. So anything that I have like a quibble with is kind of more about thematics and kind of the messages it's saying. But as far as performances, as far as technical things, like the cinematography, I think is stunning. And it's by the same guy who did 9 Days, which was so beautifully done. So good. Love that film. Mm-hmm. I know you do too. But yeah, so I think the score is great. The cinematography is great. It's very tense. It's very nauseating, like intentionally so. It was intentionally done to kind of evoke 70s psychological thrillers, and I really think it does that well. Yeah, I think like the whole time I'm watching this, I just felt nauseous. Like I felt like claustrophobic, nauseous, tense. Oh, but it's in the best possible way. And I know that sounds possibly weird to say, but because it's just such an engrossing, riveting film. And I think while the technical elements are so good, I think so much of it is attributable to Rebecca Hall's performance. But I'm sorry the end didn't work for you.
Hey, I feel like we're dealing with last week all over again with not okay. But at least
sort of.
I feel like more of this movie worked for me on the whole. Like I agree with you that it is absolutely riveting. It is so tense. Mm-hmm. From a technical perspective, it's really well done. From an acting perspective, it's also extremely well. Like Tim Roth is a creepy motherfucker. He's creepy.
Yeah, he is.
He looks creepy, but he also just is creepy. He's so good at playing just absolute creeps.
Yeah, not the first time we see him, but it's like the third time we see him when she runs into him on a bench and she's like, you know, get the fuck away from me, stay away from my daughter. And he's like, what do you mean, madam? And he's totally gaslighting her that he's not him when he totally is. But then he starts calling her name. So clearly he knows who she is and he knew all along. But then he walks away and he smiles, the creepiest smile. And then it like crumbles, like he looks like he's going to murder her. Oh, it's so awful, but it's so great. Like he does what he's doing physically too is so, so menacing and so great. Mm-hmm. But I think what's really smart about his performance and also what the director chose to do in the way that he wrote him as a character is that, and also something interesting too that Seaman said in his interview was that he was inspired. He wanted to do a movie about parents' fear about protecting their children, like feeling like they're not able to protect their children and kind of delving into that fear. And he said that he developed this story, this idea for this film. It took a long time, but he had a friend who was in an abusive relationship, like an emotion, or he didn't say abusive, he said toxic. And watching this friend deal with a toxic relationship and having difficulty dealing with a manipulative, abusive person this way, it really informed how people deal with this. And he wanted to incorporate that into the film. But my point in kind of going on all about that is in regards to Tim Roth's character, both Tim Roth and the director, they didn't want him to seem like an obvious villain. They wanted him to seem kind of mild-mannered, like a regular guy. Like, oh no, you're crazy. He's not that bad. Which again is digging into gaslighting, of course, which makes me feel like this would be a really interesting film companion piece, like kind of a great double feature with Chloe Okuno's Watcher, dealing with gaslighting and, you know, oh, women are crazy. And it's like, no, society silences us, but that's a whole other thing.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's a great performance, and I think it's really, really well written.
It just made me so sad that when she finally works up the gumption to tell someone, she tells the intern, and the intern like is the most not helpful person who doesn't believe a word that she's saying, and it's just it just made me so mad. And I'm like, I really wish that she attempted to tell her daughter what was going on, because I feel like it would have made a little more sense to like her daughter would have, I think, been disturbed by her behavior, but I feel like she would have had more of a frame of reference to be like, okay, this is some pretty heavy shit mom's going through, so maybe I'm gonna not just be the absolute worst to her about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear what you're saying about why she didn't tell, like, you know, how it would have been great for if she told her daughter. I think it's very obvious why she didn't tell her. Well, one, I think she didn't want to worry her daughter, although her behavior is very worrisome. So it's kind of a self-defeating purpose here. But I think the other reason she might not have told her is because after she tells the intern, the intern's reaction is abominable. Like, it is terrible. The intern thinks she's pranking her, like joking. She thinks it's some kind of weird work test. And I think as someone who's had to tell people, or not has had to, but has chosen to tell people about abusive relationships, sometimes people just can't handle it. They're not the right person. It's not the right time. They're just not open to receiving that information. And that can be really crushing. Like, you never want... I speak from my own experience. I never wanted to tell anyone again, because you want people to, you know, be open to receiving it, and not everybody is. And so I could see her as a character being like, well, I told one person, it didn't go well, I got to keep that shit to myself, you know, even though it would have been great if she told her daughter, or even if she didn't get into all the details, but just like, hey, I have, you know, a really abusive ex, or I have an ex who's stalking me and I'm worried, like something like that. But I think also maybe what's playing into it is her sense of control, and maybe she thought like, I've got this, I can handle this.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about how she reacts to her boyfriend / lover, because she doesn't want to call him her boyfriend. And he's like, I'm in love with you. And she like tackles him to the ground because she thinks he's getting in the way, and she threatens him. And she's like, if you get in the way of my mission again, I'll beat you till you're dead. Like, oh my God, that is terrifying. That was a horrifying scene.
Yeah. I mean, after she like also really eviscerated him verbally when he was like in the house, and he came there with the daughter, and they had their like attempted intervention with her.
Oh, I know. And she just like wanted none of that.
No.
Yeah. It's really sad. It's very, very sad. Yeah, this is a really sad movie. Obviously.
Well, yeah, given the subject matter.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe somebody out there, multiple people, might interpret the ending as that's the way it happens, and so it is a happy ending. Although, like I said, I think the look on her face, if you thought it was a happy ending, I think the look on her face at the very end kind of reveals otherwise, but who knows? There is no answer set in stone, as the director said, so maybe it is a happy ending, but I don't think so.
It doesn't seem like it.
You know. But man, Rebecca Hall is so good. You know, I have to say that was all I needed to know about this film to be like, oh, I'm in. Because if Rebecca Hall is in a film, and now if she directs a film, because Passing was one of my absolute favorite films of the year last year. If she directs a film, I'm in. If she's in a film, if she has anything to do with the film, I'm in. And when I saw this at Sundance, this was one of the films, this is one of my top films from Sundance. And I have pondered it all this time since, months and months later. And it still is so visceral, such a visceral experience watching it again. It's great.
Yeah, she really is great. I mean, like, I was thinking back to The Night House, and I was like, there's a movie I didn't love, but she was so good in it. Like that one scene where she fucking eviscerates that parent who comes in, who's trying to like argue about her kid's grade.
She is great at eviscerating people.
Yeah, she's real good. She's great at giving people a dressing down verbally.
Yes. I feel like I could just watch a supercut of her giving people a dressing down. Oh, I love it. I love it. Evan, did you have any other thoughts or reactions to Resurrection?
No, I think we covered it, honestly. I feel like we covered a lot of ground with this.
The one thing I will say is I think Resurrection is an interesting title because obviously it means coming back from the dead. And,
Right.
you know, you could say, oh, it's the baby coming back from the dead. Or you could say it's her past coming back from the dead. I kind of like that it can be, it could address multiple things.
Yeah, it does some heavy lifting, that title.
Yeah, I like it. So let's talk about our next film, Prey, which is the latest film in the Predator franchise. This is directed by Dan Trachtenberg and written by Patrick Aison, based on the Predator franchise by Jim Thomas and John Thomas. It's the fifth of the Predator films, and it stars Amber Midthunder. And let me get the synopsis. This is going to be from the press notes. All right. Set in the Comanche Nation 300 years ago, Prey is the story of a young woman, Nadu, a fierce and highly skilled warrior. She's been raised in the shadow of some of the most legendary hunters who roam the Great Plains, so when danger threatens her camp, she sets out to prove herself a worthy hunter. The prey she stalks and ultimately confronts turns out to be a highly evolved alien predator with a technically advanced arsenal, resulting in a vicious and terrifying showdown between the two adversaries.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Evan, I'm not wasting another moment. I'm not digging into anything else. I'm saying one thing, and then I want to know what you think. I loved this. What did you think?
Also loved it.
Yeah!
Fuck yeah, this movie is badass. I was so
Yes!
excited to see it. On paper, it sounded amazing, and it was equally amazing in watching it.
Agree. I could not agree more. Love it.
Yeah. It looks really good. Like, there's
It
just
does.
some really
It's beautiful.
amazing cinematography. There's a lot of, it takes place in, they say, the Northern Plains. There's a lot of, like, really great cinematography. These, like, sweeping vistas and mountains and terrain. It all looks really good. There's a scene where she's walking and it's daytime, and you can see the sun in the background, and they've managed to, like, give the sky this, like, bluish tint in a way that almost looks like the ocean. It's like, I've never seen the sky look like that before, and it was just so cool.
Yeah, that is all natural light. They basically were chasing daylight the whole time, and they filmed in Calgary. And in the press notes, they were talking about how the light is just kind of special there. And so everything just has a very different hue, and the light looks different. And yeah, so you're totally right. And yeah, it was stunning. It was just so gorgeous. The light, the cinematography, beautiful.
Right. There's like a shot where she's coming out of the teepee in the morning, and you can see it, and it's just like it follows her out through, the entrance to it. There's another one I can think of where the predator is like in this cave, and the like sun is, is shining in the background, and it's like kneeling in the cave. There's just so many like really amazing shots in this movie, and a thing you would not expect in these kinds of movies. Like, there's not usually that attention to detail in some of the other Predator movies.
What do you mean? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but along those lines too, I'm so glad you brought up attention to detail, because there clearly is with the cinematography. There really is with the authenticity of the Comanche Nation as well, which I think is so fascinating. And they talk about this in the press notes. I've read this in various interviews with Dan Trachtenberg and Amber Midthunder and producer Jane Myers, who is Comanche. And the fact that they had a Comanche producer, and she's been a consultant on other films before. And she said, when you're a consultant on other films, they may listen to you, they may not. It's out of your hands. But when you're a producer and you're on set, that's a very different thing, and you definitely can have different input. And so she definitely helped shape the script, and there was a lot of research done on the clothing to be period authentic, the makeup, like the tattoos and the facial makeup, like those colors, the black, white, and red, those are all authentic. The headdresses and feathers are authentic. Like, it's just the absolute attention to detail is amazing. Like the tools they used are authentic. the weapons, the way they fought, they had to do boot camp training and train in Comanche style fighting. Like that, it's unbelievable, the attention to detail and how the filmmakers wanted to get everything so correct and authentic, which is great just in and of itself, but especially when you're telling a story about Native American and Indigenous peoples, like that's just even more special, and that's so great.
Yeah, it definitely, it doesn't feel like you're watching like a period piece like you would in some movies where you're like, okay, you know, they're putting on airs and like, you know, it's supposed to be in the, you know, it's 1719, but okay, there's still, you know, anachronisms or like obvious things that say to you like, okay, great. But it just doesn't feel like that in this movie. It feels like you're dropped back into 1719 and you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And yeah, it just everything, attention to detail, the tattoos, the makeup, everything just feels of the era. It does, except for the Predator, obviously. Just got all this advanced technology.
Yes. Although the Predator is more, and intentionally so, not quite as advanced as we've seen the Predator be later on in the films, like using a bone mask, using like instead of like I think the heat-seeking like missiles, instead it's bolts. So yeah, so it's still very advanced, obviously, and still traveling through space, but it's a little, still a little not quite as advanced, a little less advanced, which I think is great. I am so excited that Amber Midthunder stars in this because not only is she Native American, she's Sioux, but I loved her in the abominable movie, that ice truck movie that Liam Neeson did. And she was also in The Marksman with Liam Neeson that same year. And she was great in that too. And she had like the tiniest role, but she was amazing in both. And I was like, she's going to be big. If she gets the right role, she's going to be big. And I think this is the right role because I think she is outstanding. She is so expressive in her face. Her physicality is wonderful. Her fighting skills look great. She just lends so much charisma and pathos to her character. Even when she's not saying a lot, I was riveted, loved her, love that she's a warrior trying to prove herself because this is a very gendered society where men are the warriors and women do the cooking. And I was curious because I was like, well, wait a minute. A lot of Indigenous and Native American communities were not like that. But no, apparently the Comanche community was at that time. So that's period authentic too. But yeah, just seeing her trying to prove herself is just so great. And I love her. I'm so excited to see her in more things because she's wonderful in this.
Yeah, she's so good in this. She's so charismatic. She's just... She really owns it, you know? It's like, and you get to go on this amazing journey with her. Is, you know, she's put in situations where she's kind of like hesitating in the beginning, like when she is hesitating getting the mountain lion and she falls off the tree and hits her head. And then like seeing her go through the journey where she's like developing the confidence to do what she needs to do to when she gets to finally take on the Predator. Oh my God. Woof. I love the way she attaches that rope to her axe. She can like throw it around like a ninja.
Yep. So
that was really good.
Yep.
I love her loyal dog. Sorry.
I love her dog. I know. I was so worried the dog was going to die. Because there's so many dead animals in this movie. So I want to give that warning because, Evan, I know you and I like to give those kinds of warnings. Yeah. I mean, a lot of them are CGI, which is great. Like the bear is and everything. But still, it's like, oh, God, there's still so many dead animals. But thank God the dog's okay. The dog is fine, everyone.
The dog does not die in this. Yes. Thank God. But a lot of other animals die. And the movie really doesn't make a point to show you like the food chain and like the Predator also working its way up the food chain, like fighting the wolf and then fighting the bear, you know, it's and it is interesting to me that, you know, early on you see the Predator's blood. So like it's fighting things that are wounding it, which is interesting to me that it's not like in the other Predator movies, you know, like anytime the Predators kill things, it just, you know, eviscerate is apparently the word of the day. It just
Apparently.
eviscerates them and is able to like take them out so quickly. And so in this, it's refreshing to see it like also fighting wolves and bears and things like that, and getting hurt and getting bit and getting, wounded. So then we get to come around to that, the famous line, if it bleeds, we can kill it. Throwback to the original Predator.
Right? Because I was like, before he even said it, I was thinking that. I know there are so many touches. It's been a very long time since I've seen the original Predator, but there's so many touches that even I remember, like, coming out of the mud, and I'm like, oh, nice little touch
Right.
there. Yeah.
But she
I
didn't
liked
use
that.
the mud as camouflage, which I thought was going to happen. I thought it was not going to see her because of the mud.
Yep.
But no, I thought it was really clever that she had that like herbal remedy that she could use to
Yes.
lower her blood temperature to make herself almost invisible to it.
And you know what's funny? If she was not a woman, she wouldn't have known that, because the whole reason she knows about medicine is because of her gender in that society. And so her gender is, while it may seem to be a hindrance, is not. It's actually a boon. Woohoo! I love it.
Oh boy, is it.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But I love too that like she thinks that she's doubting herself, because you had said earlier, she hesitates when she's trying to take out the mountain lion earlier, and she doesn't always like react quickly per se, but she's very thoughtful. Like she gives a lot of thought to what's going to happen. She's very observant. She pays attention. She doesn't miss anything. And I like that her brother reminds her of that later in the film and tells her, hey, the reason I was able to take down the lion was because of what you did first. Like you weakened the lion, so I was able to take him out. And so I just really liked that, like kind of, and I like how they collaboratively fight together. I think that was really great. It's very sad that he dies, of course.
Oh my
but
God,
also
I was so sad about that.
so sad. By
I was
the way,
like,
that
yes,
actor,
brother and sister fighting Predator.
I know. But that actor, Dakota Beavers, I think this is his first role or one of his first roles. And he's great. He's so good in this.
Yeah, he is really good. I mean, she is too.
Yes.
Like,
Oh my God. Listen, I've been singing Amber Midthunder's praises ever since those two terrible Liam Neeson movies. I will continue to sing her praises because she's amazing.
I had pushed them out of my brain because they were so bad, and I had forgotten that she was really good in them.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. That's really, really understandable, especially the Ice Road. Woo, that was bad, but she's so good in it. Like that's really, I tried to fixate on that because I was like, who is she? She's so good. I want to see her in more. And then I heard she was going to be in this, and I was like, yeah. And then I saw it and it was great. I also was really excited because I really like Dan Trachtenberg as a filmmaker. I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think that is so good, so tense.
It is really good.
It is. I think that's a terrifying movie. I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead gives such a great performance. John Goodman is so great in it. And it's so when I heard that he was going to direct this, I was really excited. I was like, oh, I think this is going to be something really good. And for maybe, I'm going to say it. I think it's something kind of special, that we have an almost entirely Native American and Indigenous cast, and that it looks, like you said, it looks this good. The cinematography is so gorgeous. I really loved the score. I thought the score was beautiful too. And the fighting sequences are good. It's fun. It's a really well-paced film. Oh, this is just so good. I can't say enough great things about it.
It feels like there's a genuine sense of danger throughout the movie too for the protagonist. Like when she almost sinks in that mud or the bog or whatever it is, and she barely claws her way out of that, or when the bear is attacking her and she's hiding in the beaver dam and like
that's tense.
She's locked up in the cage for the French trappers. By the way, I love that they, at least in our screeners, they subtitled the French and Comanche, but did not give you translations of it, at least, which I thought was interesting.
I did not get any subtitles at all, nor translations. So
yeah.
So
but they subtitled without translation, at least in the screener I watched.
Yeah, there were no subtitles whatsoever. But I did like that there were no subtitles and no translation. I'm here for that. I don't need to know what the French trappers are saying. It's fine. I kind of like that they don't.
when that one guy sees the predator and he's like,
oh, he says
"Nerd."
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I know enough French to know that. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's shit. That's funny. I also, speaking along those lines, the other touch I really liked about that is I like that we're getting a touch of colonialism. Well, not that we're getting a touch of it, of course, because that's horrible. But I like that we're seeing a touch of it in the film. And I like that it's when you see the skinned buffaloes, you're assuming because you've seen all of these other skinned animals like the snake and the bear and like everything, you assume it's the predator. And I think that's what Naru thinks too, that, oh, this is this creature. But then she sees when she's at their camp, she's like, you're the ones who are killing the buffalo. And it's just so sad. And it's sad regardless, but it's just like, oh yeah, white people, we suck. We're terrible.
Yeah. Well, didn't she find the cigar next to the buffalo? So I feel like she had a sense that it was like, oh, great. The fucking white dudes are here.
I don't know if she, maybe she knew then, maybe not, because that could have been something that was the predators. So yeah, but either way, if she had a suspicion, it was definitely confirmed then. But yeah. I don't know about you, but as soon as I was done watching this, I'm like, and I also love the credits too, the animation. Those are drawings by Indigenous artists or an Indigenous artist. And I love that it's then animated. I can't wait to watch this again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it again. Like at the end when she's killed it and she is bringing it. By the way, when the brother showed up with like the head of the mountain lion or whatever, we were both saying like, she better show up later with the head of that fucking predator. And then it was like when she came and was like carrying its head into the village, it was like, hell yes.
And then she like tosses it
that we all wanted. Yeah, she's covered in its green blood all over her face, and then she's just throws this alien head.
I know, and then she's finally accepted by her tribe as the warrior that she deserves to be. It's really nice, and I also like that a little girl is watching her, kind of like, ooh, I could do that too, maybe. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, I love everything about. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yes.
I was going to mention the revolver that she gets from the guy who's with the colonists. It took me a stupid long time to realize the connection to the other Predator movies when I saw the revolver. I was like, why are they focusing so much on this revolver?
I don't know. Please tell me. I don't know. I haven't seen most of the Predator movies.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, okay.
No, I've seen the first one, and I've seen AVP with Sanaa Lathan. That's it.
Okay. So she learns, there's a guy who's with the French trappers who teaches her how to use his gun in exchange for her like helping him. And so she's using it. She uses it to help kill the predator. And then like later in the toward the end, she's like staring at it and it's got like an engraving on it.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, why are they focusing on this revolver so much? And I'm like, wait a minute. This is a reference to Predator 2. This is a thing where it's like, okay, it's a connection to that. Duh. It's been so long since I've seen Predator 2. I need to see it again.
Well, now I need to watch it because I never saw it. So.
Oh, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that's one. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm not going to comment on the quality of it. But I remember some memorable performances between Danny Glover, Gary Busey, Bill Paxton, and Ruben Blades, who I like as well.
I like him really too.
Good.
Yeah. No, my intention was to watch or rewatch every single Predator before, and it just, things happen. It just kind of slipped away from me, so it didn't happen. But yeah. But then if I had watched it, then I wouldn't. Yeah. Whereas I was just like, oh, why are we focusing on this revolver?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay. So that's good to know. Again, another Easter egg. That's kind of nice. I like that. I like that it's nodding to the existing franchise while still very much forging its own path. I like that very much.
Me too. Especially after how much I hated the last Predator movie, the Shane Black Predator movie. Ugh. So bad.
Yikes. I have not seen it, so I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, it's not good. Although I haven't seen the AVP or AVP Requiem. I've missed both of those movies.
Yeah, I have not seen Requiem. I've just seen AVP. The one with Sanaa Lathan, I think that's not Requiem. I think that's just AVP. I don't know. There's just a scene in particular that I remember that's kind of a cool scene. But anyway, I digress. But it's interesting because I feel, I don't know how you feel, but oftentimes I find origin films not great.
Mm-hmm.
I usually like to just kind of jump in to a story. I don't like having to go through the whole origin again. This was an origin story that I'm here for. This completely makes sense. This is doing some really interesting things, and it's not getting bogged down. It's not getting, by the way, sidebar, that bog made me, since we just saw The Neverending Story last week, it made me think of The Swamp of Sadness, which then made me think of our text, and it was very sad. But I like that the film doesn't get bogged down in kind of like laying any groundwork or laying any mythology or anything like that. Like I like that it just kind of is like, oh, they're here, that's it. I also really like that for Naru, she really thinks like, oh, it's a sign, it's time to do my test because I saw the Thunderbird. And it completely like fits into the mythology. It makes sense that that would be like a great omen for her and not like, whoa, what the hell was that? And so I thought that was a nice touch too. But I like that it kind of just hits the ground running, doesn't waste a lot of time. Yeah. Oh man, do I love this movie.
Yeah. You don't need to waste a lot of time on the mythology of it. The predators show up. They've been showing up on Earth at all times to hunt people as part of their whatever weird... I don't know, religion. I don't know. Maybe they're just like humans. They're like, you know, this is big game hunting to them. I don't freaking know. That's
what I thought it was. I thought that's exactly what it was, that they think that they have to fight a worthy opponent. And so they're always searching for like the worthy opponents to fight. So, and I was under the impression this was the first time they came to Earth, but maybe not. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just that one of the first times they came to Earth.
It seems like it could be. It's the earliest one that I'm aware of.
Yes, it definitely is, which I think is also really cool too, because when you think about sci-fi, that's another thing too that I read in an interview, kind of talking about like another reason why this is a really special movie for the Indigenous cast and crew is that oftentimes Native and Indigenous people are not a part of genre films. And so they're usually just a part of like period pieces. And what's so cool about this is a period piece, but it's also a genre film, which is really neat. And I like that we're seeing a sci-fi film, but in the past, like that's just really cool. It's great that it's like merging these worlds. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to see more sci-fi set in the past. Like that's great. It's so cool.
Sure. Yeah. Sign me up. But less like bad sci-fi in the past. Like we don't need more Wild Wild Wests out here.
Oh, no. Actually, I never saw that. It looked too terrible. I don't like to judge a film I have not seen. Oh, well.
Between like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and Jonah Hex, I can avoid the Weird West genre for a while.
Oh, see. Well, I think, like some Weird West is good. Like Bacurau is Weird West, and that's actually really good. But I digress. But no, this was great. This is great. This has got great writing, great direction, great acting. I love the camaraderie between the cast and great visuals, entertaining, tense, emotional stakes. It's got it all.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to talk about is I've been seeing a lot of commentary out there on Twitter, a lot of opposing viewpoints on this movie with regard to its distribution. I've just seen a lot of people going, I'm so mad this isn't in theaters. How dare they dump this movie to Hulu and streaming and all that. And while I understand that, and I think this movie would be fucking awesome on the big screen, I don't like when people poo-poo streaming as like some type of like death, sign of the times of like the death of movies, because like it's just streaming has offered the opportunity for so many more people to see these movies, and if in this case so many more people see this really fucking awesome badass sci-fi movie that's about indigenous people and is like super authentic to their experience. Like, isn't that better? Like, shouldn't we be happy about that? More people are able to see this like really cool movie that's like really well done.
Yes. Yes, my short answer is yes. I think, listen, I have never complained about streaming, and I never will complain. Well, I shouldn't say never. Who knows? Something wild may happen down the road. But I never complain about streaming because for the exact same reasons. I think it provides accessibility to people who have, mobility issues, to disabled people who can't, for maybe they're caretaking other loved ones, they can't leave the house. Yeah, so streaming provides access. Streaming provides access in other ways too, because you're right. Not every film goes to every theater. There are lots of communities in this country that don't have access to a wide range of films, and the only way, like you said, you'd see them is on streaming. And there is a growing number of indigenous genre films, which I think is, and not just genre films, but just indigenous films in general, which I think is great. And I think we desperately need, and we definitely need more of and more to see. Having said that, I do understand the frustration that here is a big film in an established franchise with, an indigenous producer, with a Native American lead, with a mostly Native American cast, and it doesn't get a big screen release. That's frustrating. And I understand that because it could make a ton of money. And part of me doesn't care about making money because it's very, very capitalism, and capitalism is a sham, and I hate capitalism. But part of it is we are existing in a capitalist system, and film is within that. And part of how people, which is annoying that this is how films are judged, but so often how films are judged is how well they do at the box office. Yeah. And I think that is a reality. I think it's also bullshit. I think we need to stop. I agree with you that we need to stop this pitting of movie theater cinematic experiences against streaming. One is not better than the other. One is not more special than the other. Yeah, is going to a theater a special experience? Sure. Is, seeing a film on the big screen in the dark with the loudspeakers, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I love it.
Is.
I also love seeing movies on my laptop and on my TV at home. And watching movies is watching movies. And that's really what I get. So very much I echo your frustration that we should not be pitting big cinema releases along with streaming releases. However, I keep going back and forth because I think it is a kind of complex issue, because it is frustrating because what films get deemed as appropriate to go directly to streaming as opposed to, nope, this is only going to be in theaters. Like, nope, that's it. We're only going to do this in theaters. We're not putting this on streaming. Or no, this is going to go to theaters and streaming. Or this is only going to go to streaming. So I understand the frustration about why is this film, going to streaming, but I don't think we should be pitting in-person cinema experiences against streaming.
Certainly not while we're still in a pandemic. Like,
no!
Like,
good Lord,
in
people.
the before times, sure. Yeah, I totally get it. But like now, like it's been a frustrating couple of years as like a moviegoer and a film critic to like
that's an understatement.
Left out of things because I can't go to a movie theater like other people because it's too high risk. It's just so utterly frustrating that you have like people like Christopher Nolan that were like, in the very almost, infancy of the pandemic saying, no one's going to see this unless it's in a theater. And like theaters were barely even open at the time. It's like, really? Yeah, that's the hill you're going to die on, you prick?
Yeah, that was an asshole statement for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The thing I could say, oh, yes.
I was just going to say it's a longer, larger conversation we could have for a while, but I just thought it was important to bring up because I felt like it was a conversation I was seeing a lot of back and forth on about on Twitter about this movie.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's a conversation that comes up so regularly, but it is an important one to have. Yeah, I mean, I guess my solution would be why not release it in theaters and do streaming simultaneously? Like, to me, that's the best. Like, more access is better. Do it both. But yeah, I would much rather have things have access streaming wise for all the reasons that we've talked about, you know, because yes, COVID's still here. Monkeypox is here. These things are not going away anytime soon. And even if we didn't have, even before COVID, I was pro streaming, and it always boggled my mind when people are like, no, you can only see a movie in the theater. That's the only way to see a movie. And I'm like, what if you have a disability? What if you what if you can't afford to go to the movies? And because it's a very ableist and elitist notion to think you only can and only should go to the movies. And if you can't go to the movies, fuck you. You don't get to participate in this. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, along the lines of what you're talking about with access, something I love that filmmaker Ava DuVernay has always said, she has always praised streaming because she says, you know, it provides access for not just audiences, but for so many filmmakers that otherwise would not have such an audience seeing their film. So I think it works all around. So no, I'm glad you brought it up. So thank you for bringing it up. It's a great topic, and it's a really important one. And I think it speaks to, like, it's kind of one of those things that might seem, you know, like a little too insidery or like, what's the big deal? But no, I think it's a very big deal, because I think not only does it involve filmmaking and film as art, but who gets to decide what we see and who has access, who doesn't. And I think it speaks to larger issues of, you know, class and disability and access and a whole host of other things. So
yeah,
glad you brought it up.
Yeah. I mean, as we've talked about on the show before, it's like, the things that make the money are usually up for awards. The thing that wins the awards usually gets that filmmaker or, you know, groups of people more cachet and more ability because they've proven themselves, you know, right or wrong on the balance sheet and said, okay, this has made a ton of money. So then the studio has a much harder time saying no to that.
Exactly. Hear, hear. Do you have any final thoughts on Prey?
No, I feel like we've come very far from Prey, but I'm really glad that we saw it and talked about it, and I'm eager for listeners to be able to see it because I think it's a pretty fucking awesome movie.
Me too. I think it's going to have a lot of praise. I think just seeing it's so far has, and we can also debate Rotten Tomatoes and the merit of that, but that's a whole other conversation. But so far it has critical acclaim in that I think it's 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and critics are raving about it. So I think this is, you know, and a lot of times there are films where critics rave about them, but audiences don't, and vice versa. I think this is one that critics and audiences are going to be in alignment with. I really do.
Yeah.
Which is great, because this is great. So let's do a quick recap. Oh my God, what did we talk about first? Oh, Resurrection.
Yeah.
we've been on this part of the conversation for so long. I got sidetracked for a moment. Okay, Resurrection. Resurrection is in theaters. It actually opened in theaters last week. It is on VOD now, so you can watch this from the comfort of your home, but you do have to pay for it. Evan, would you recommend it?
I found the ending so frustrating, but I feel like there's enough good there that it's worth seeing.
Oh, okay. So a recommendation with a reservation. I like it.
Yes.
With a caveat. I like it. I would unequivocally, unabashed, universally recommend it. It's wonderful. So yes, it's got a weird ending, but I love a weird ending that kind of makes me like it more. So so yes, I'd recommend it. And Prey is on Hulu streaming right now. Go watch it and watch it again. I think it's safe to say we both highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. Yes.
Highly. We want to give a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clammer. Otto, thank you so much for making us sound great week in and week out.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. We are all over the place at your preferred platform of choice. Or you can just go to our website, spoilerpiece.com. That's where you can also find our merch, too. We talked about that in the beginning of the show if you want to rock some Spoiler Piece merch. You can also check us out on social media. We're all over the place. We're at Spoiler Piece on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, and TikTok. So come follow us, say hello at all of the places. And speaking of saying hello, you can email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail message, text us, let us know. Yes, you hated the ending of Resurrection 2, or yes, you loved Prey. Or maybe you loved the ending of Resurrection. We're here for that too.
Yeah.
Or maybe you were confused by it. Or maybe you felt mixed and torn. Who knows? But we want to hear it. We love hearing your opinions. We love hearing your questions. And yeah, so definitely reach out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, really like the show, consider joining our Patreon if you're not a patron already. And a huge thank you to our patrons who are patrons already. We love you, and we love you listeners. For $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes. This week, we talked about the 1979 time travel film Time After Time in honor of David Warner's passing away, because he gives a great performance, and we have a really fun conversation. So go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not a patron, consider joining. You also get to vote in our monthly polls, and you get access to our huge catalog of hundreds of bonus episodes. You get to check those out. They're always a lot of fun, very off the cuff. Well, I mean, we still do our research and stuff, but they're very off the cuff, very fun.
Yeah.
A little more free flowy maybe. But yeah, we have a great time there, just like we have a great time here. My name is Megan Kearns. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld or on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.